GMC has now released both the next generation 2027 Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra 1500. We've seen the new designs, the new interiors, and the return of two larger V8 engine sizes. But GM has still not released the numbers that most truck buyers are waiting for: horsepower, torque, towing, payload, fuel economy, and pricing. That does not mean that nothing's happened since the reveals. A surprising number of smaller details have surfaced. Reported engine codes, a new engine oil grade, more standard safety equipment, SuperCruise on more trims, a lighter multifunction tailgate, the return of the rear door lock buttons, the CarbonPro bed disappearing, and a complete set of new colors. This is not another reveal video. This is everything we know now, what is actually confirmed, and what still needs an answer before anybody, including myself, makes a buying decision. Let's go. So before we get into it, one important distinction. Some of this comes from Chevrolet's and GM's own launch material. Those are confirmed production intentions, although pre-production details can still change. The engine RPO codes and the 0W30 oil specification were reported after appearing in GM dealer information. They look credible and fit the launch timing, but GM has still not yet published a complete engine specification sheet tying every detail together. I will identify those as reported rather than pretending they are final factory numbers. And because many of you are watching from Canada, the feature lists we have today come mostly from GM's US announcements. The hardware should be broadly relevant, but final Canadian packages might not match the US options exactly. So the biggest story is still under the hood. The outgoing 5.3 liter and 6.2 liter V8 choices are effectively being replaced by all new 6th generation small block V8s measuring 5.7 liters and 6.6 liters. Both are naturally aspirated, and GM says the 6.6 will make the Silverado and Sierra the most powerful, naturally aspirated V8 half-ton trucks in its class. That sounds impressive, but notice what GM has not done. It has not published the horsepower or torque figures behind the claim. It has also not shown us the torque curve, the final tow ratings, or the fuel economy trade-off. Most powerful is a headline. The specification sheet is what tells us if the power is going to arrive or the truck owners need it. What GM has confirmed is these engines are more than just displacement increases. The company says that the new V8s use advanced combustion, cooling, and control systems, plus a new fuel injection system intended to improve power, torque, and performance across daily driving, off-road use, and towing. Those are broad claims today. The technical details are still coming. The rest of the powertrain lineup continues. The enhanced 2.7 liter TurboMax 4-cylinder returns, and it finally moves to the 10-speed automatic instead of the current 8-speed. The 3-liter Duramax diesel also remains. GM says every available engine will now be paired with the 10-speed, and Chevrolet describes the same 4 powertrain strategy. Now to the engine codes. GM Authority and GMTrucks.com reported that the L76 and L78 have appeared in dealer information for the new V8 family. The logical mapping is the L76 for the 5.7 and the L78 for the 6.6, following GM's normal smaller number, smaller engine pattern. But the mapping is still an inference until GM publishes the final engine guide. Those codes are interesting because both have history. The L76 has been used on earlier Chevrolet small blocks, including the high output 327, while the L78 is strongly associated with the old 396 big block. Reusing the codes feels deliberate, but the heritage does not tell us anything about the modern engine's output or durability. It's a branding context, not a specification. The other reported detail is a new factory fill oil, 0W30, meeting Dexos 1 Gen 3 for the Gen 6 V8s. The simple explanation is that the 0W cold rating remains suitable for cold starts, while the 30 grade is thicker at operating temperatures than the 0W20 used in current 5.3 and 6.2 trucks. As the owner of a 2021 Sierra with the L87, of course that gets my attention. GM's recall remedy for the affected 6.2 liter engines that pass inspection use 0W40 Dexos R, so people will naturally connect the stories. But we need to be disciplined here. GM has not said that the Gen 6 engines moved to 0W30 because of the L87 recall. This is commentary for observers, not an engineering statement from GM. But I think there's some safe conclusions we can make here. The safe conclusion is narrower. If the dealer information is correct, GM has selected a different viscosity for a new engine family designed for higher output and heavy use. GM is still saying that owners of the current trucks should continue to use the oil specified for their own engine and follow any recall instructions that apply to their VIN. Do not change oil grades just because a future engine uses something different. Well, I didn't follow that advice in my 2021 GMC Sierra, which is not part of the active recall. I switched to 0W30 0W40. I'm not quite at the interval where I'm going to do some testing to see if it offered better protection, maybe a little less wear than the 0W20. We're not there yet. Of course, our 2022 Cadillac Escalade was part of the active recall, and we've been using the prescribed 0W40 ever since. So far, everything's been fine, but we'll just have to see. So the next meaningful update is safety equipment, and this may matter more on the lower trims than it does on the flagship trucks that GM used for the reveals. GM's official What's New lists identify 4 newly standard features for the 2027: intersection automatic emergency braking, front pedestrian and bicyclist braking, side bicyclist alert, and reverse automatic braking. I'm having trouble saying the word bicyclist. Those join a much broader standard list that includes adaptive cruise control, the safety alert seat, IntelliBeam headlights, front and rear park assist, forward collision alert, rear cross traffic braking, blind zone steering assist, rear pedestrian alert, and an HD rear camera. I hope that all of the cameras use a higher resolution than the current generation. The important point is that not every one of these new features is new. It is that GM is raising the standard equipment floor. A work truck, pro, or volume trim should no longer feel several technology generations behind the expensive truck sitting beside it. The caution is the packaging. GM's US release presents this as the standard 2027 list, but I still want to see the Canadian order guides and any body style or fleet exceptions before saying every truck in the market is identical. SuperCruise is also moving from a halo feature to something GM expects to sell in serious volume. On the Silverado, it is listed as standard on the High Country and the ZR2, and available on the newly named Silverado trim, which replaces the LT, and also available on the Trail Bus. On the Sierra, it's standard on the AT4, the AT4X, Denali, and Denali Ultimate, and available on the Elevation. This is a major expansion. GM has told investors it expects roughly 160,000 incremental SuperCruise equipped full-size pickups in 2027. This is no longer a feature reserved for one top luxury trim. This also means that subscriptions should go up. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this, but GM really seems to think that for truck buyers, the compelling part is trailering. On a properly equipped truck, SuperCruise can support hands-free driving while towing on compatible roads, and GM says the network covers more than 600,000 miles across the United States and Canada. When a trailer is recognized, the system increases the following gap. Automatic and turn signal initiated lane changes are not available while trailering. So it sounds like they're adding some extra safety features if you're going to use that, but I wonder if it trumps experience. Now, the ownership detail that should not be buried: the truck includes 3 years of connectivity needed for SuperCruise. After that, an eligible paid OnStar plan is required to keep using it. In the United States, Chevrolet currently lists the plan for $40 a month. Canadian pricing will certainly differ. So do not evaluate SuperCruise only as an option price on the window sticker. Ask whether you would still pay for it in year 4. For somebody towing a camper a long distance, it may genuinely reduce fatigue. For a short city commute, the value calculation could look very different. At the back of the truck, the MultiFlex tailgate on the Silverado or the MultiPro tailgate on the GMC Sierra is not being replaced, it's being updated. The clearest description so far comes from GM leadership and subsequent reporting. The new design will be lighter, add more tie-down capability, and provide additional usability. Reporting and pre-production photos also suggest cleaner cut lines and hardware influenced by the Sierra EV design. What we do not have is an official weight reduction, a final tie-down count, or a complete demonstration of every new configuration. So I would not call it an all-new 7-function tailgate or invent a feature that GM has not shown. Still, reduced weight matters. These tailgates are clever, but the current design is heavy, especially when the inner gate is being moved repeatedly. If GM can make the same basic 6-function idea easier to handle and better for securing cargo, that is a meaningful refinement rather than just a gimmick. Here's the smallest update in the video, and one owners may notice every day. Passive entry lock and unlock buttons return to all 4 exterior door handles. The refreshed current generation trucks remove the buttons from the rear handles. That means if you approach the rear door first to load a bag, a child seat, groceries, you may need to unlock with the key fob or the front door handle first. My 2021 Sierra gives us the perfect before and after reference because it still has the rear handle button. I do have some aftermarket rear handles here that incorporated the rear buttons, but initially as a stock trim, this had it. For whatever reason, GM removed a useful convenience and is now bringing it back for 2027. This feature won't sell the truck itself, but it is exactly the kind of daily interaction that makes an expensive vehicle feel thoughtfully designed or needlessly cost-cut. So not every update is an addition. GM's CarbonPro composite cargo bed is no longer available to order on the outgoing 2026 Sierra 1500, and the reporting says it's not expected to return on the next generation 2027 trucks. CarbonPro was one of GM's more distinctive features, a carbon fiber composite bed intended to reduce weight and resist dents, scratches, and corrosion while separating the Sierra from the Silverado. Now, most of you know that I do a ton of truck mods, especially to my vehicles, and the CarbonPro bed, which I do not have, is a friction point for a lot of people that want to do modifications, even simple tonneau covers on their trucks. So this is probably a good sign for the aftermarket community. However, GM has not publicly given a definitive reason for ending it. It would be easy to speculate about the cost, complexity, supplier capacity, or customer take rate. But without evidence, those are only guesses. The practical takeaway is simple. The 2027 Sierra gains a refined multifunction tailgate, but the underlying premium composite bed option appears to be finished. Buyers who specifically wanted a CarbonPro should not assume a late availability package is coming unless GM says so. Color choices are now coming into focus as well. For the GMC Sierra, the three new premium colors are Mesa Red, Azurite Blue Metallic, and Dark Ridge Metallic. 6 colors carry over: Coastal Dune, Summit White, Onyx Black, Sterling Metallic, Glacier White Tricoat, and Cardinal Red. For the Chevrolet Silverado, the new colors listed by GM are Apex Red, Pacific Blue Metallic, and Trillium Green Metallic. The announced carryovers are White Sands, Summit White, Polar White Tricoat, Black, Riptide Blue Metallic, and Sterling Gray Metallic. These names just tell us the overall palette, not every trim combination. Some colors will carry an extra charge, and final availability can vary by trim and production timing. Put all of that back into the larger reveal, and the 2027 trucks are a more complete redesign than the familiar proportions suggest. Both brands move to a 16.3-inch center display and a 12.2-inch driver display, with an available 11.5-inch passenger screen on the upper trims. Silverado makes the two main screens standard across the lineup. GMC differentiates itself with an articulating center screen that can reveal hidden storage, plus its MultiPro center console and available head restraint speakers. Off-road hardware moves up too. Silverado ZR2 and Sierra AT4X get 35-inch mud terrain tires, 2-inch lifts, front and rear electronic lockers, and new jounce control hardware working with their Multimatic dampers. Trail Boss moves to a 34-inch tire. The trim walks also change. Silverado has named 7 trims. The old LT name simply replaced with the new Silverado trim name. The Sierra has 6 named trims: Pro, Elevation, AT4, Denali, AT4X, and Denali Ultimate. So the new details in this video aren't isolated trivia. They fill in how GM is trying to move the entire lineup. More standard technology at the bottom, wider premium features available in the middle, and larger V8s and more capable off-road features at the top. So here's the part that I would keep in mind if you're deciding whether to wait for a 2027. We still need to know the horsepower and the torque for both V8s, where those peaks occur, and how the new fuel and control systems behave under real load. We need final towing and payload tables by cab, bed, axle ratio, and drivetrain. We need fuel economy estimates. We need to know exactly which engines are available on which trims and whether any combinations are delayed. We also need the details GM has barely discussed: the cylinder management strategy, recommended service intervals, axle choices, brake and cooling packages, maximum trailer configurations, full cab and bed availability, as well as pricing and subscription costs. More importantly, bigger displacement does not automatically prove better durability. GM says these engines went through an extensive validation and new combustion, cooling, and control systems. Good. But reliability is demonstrated by design detail, manufacturing consistency, and time in customers' hands, not the heritage RPO codes. The same discipline applies in the other direction. The L87 story is a legitimate reason buyers will scrutinize the new V8s, but it is not proof that the Gen 6 engines will repeat the same failures. The right approach is neither blind trust nor automatic doom. It is to demand the specifications, understand the architecture, and then watch the early production data. My next update should happen when GM releases power and torque figures, or the full order guides, whichever comes first. That is when we can compare the 5.7 with today's 5.3 and 6.2, compare the 6.6 with the Ford and Ram, and calculate whether the new trucks deliver more usable capability or simply a stronger marketing headline. So in closing, the headline is not one giant surprise. It is a combination of larger new V8s, a different reported oil grade, stronger standard safety, SuperCruise on far more trims, a lighter or more useful tailgate, a convenience feature returning, and one distinctive GMC bed option disappearing. Now what I want to know is which unanswered question decides this truck for you. Is it the 6.6 liter horsepower and torque, towing and payload, the reliability design, pricing, or whether features like SuperCruise become too expensive when the included portion ends? Put your number one question in the comments below. When GM releases the next round of specifications, I will use those priorities to build a follow-up. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing, and we'll talk to you next time.